Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and Governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place due to the outbreak of the coronavirus, this meeting of the Town of Berlin Board of Selectmen will be conducted by a remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. The Town of Berlin will use best efforts to post an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the town's webpage, the town's YouTube channel. Approved minutes will be posted to mytowngovernment.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to attend the virtual meeting may attend via the Zoom webinar platform in one of two ways, with audio and video access or by telephone audio only. Should any board member have technical difficulties and or lose access to the meeting will recess for a period of time to see whether access can be restored. If not, the meeting will be continued to another date agreed to by a majority of the board or adjourned until our next scheduled meeting. All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:04. First thing we have on the agenda is approval of the August 24th open session meeting minutes.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, do we have any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone, aye.
Hawkins, aye.
And Margaret, do we have any correspondence?
No particular correspondence this week.
Okay. I would ask the public if they have any comment. I don't see any hands raised. Oh, we'll move on.
Doesn't appear so.
Okay. Shall we go ahead with our department head report?
Chief Clark.
Hello.
Hello, Chief.
He's almost here.
Huh. Let me try it. Mary, you might be having a little bit of difficulty. I'll help you out.
I'm actually in a better signal now, and it's not, I still can't pull him up.
He's there but muted.
Yep, muted and not on video.
Has to unmute.
But that, for some reason I started both muted and not on video, even though I turned both of them on, I thought, before I started, but.
Here he is.
Yay.
There we go.
He's still at work.
All right, Chief, you're on mute, so you just have to unmute.
How are we there?
Here we
Yay!
go.
Good evening to everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good.
How's Ava? How's Ava?
Yeah, unbelievable.
How old now?
She was a year old, 27 July. So it's like, I remember coming through the door early, talking to Chris and Margaret and saying, oh, there's going to be a baby born. And it's like a lot of time's gone by really quick, but it's a really good time. And when I see you, I'll share the pictures. I got some awesome pictures, and it's been quite a run already. It's just amazing. So it's
Does she have a little? Does she have a little motorcycle outfit yet? You know, a little helmet, little leather coat.
She actually has a Harley stocking hat from my brother.
Oh, so
But
how's
your
month going?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said, how's your month going?
Going well. It's been actually been really, really busy. And I'll go through the July here, and I think August has been even busier. But for the month of July, we had 76 responses, which is up considerably. But there was 14 fire-related calls, 26 EMS responses into the community, 7 motor vehicle accidents, 28 calls for assistance to the public in one way or another, and then 1 assist to the police department. So it was really active. We had some significant incidents also that we dealt with lately, not so much in July, but there was, and I saw Scott there, is we had a call one morning or one early one in the afternoon for 2 ladies who were on horses. They had a mishap as they approached a pedal bike, and the horses threw both of them, and they were down in the woods someplace behind the eco village. That was the initial, that's all the information we had early. But from the time the first call was received until the initial contact was only 12 minutes. We went in and were aggressive finding them, and just chose the right trails to go down the first time. And my first time in those woods, very beautiful woods back there. And so that worked out good. One was transported at the ALS level, one was transported at the BLS level. And I haven't got any feedback since the call on either one of them, but things went very, very well. And just this morning, we had a fire, a kitchen fire on Barnes Hill Road that the staff handled. We were coming from one call to another and went directly to that one. And things worked out well. Tight driveway, truck barely fit in. It was tight. It was like shoehorn tight. And but we got in, extinguished the fire just as it was starting to roll across the kitchen. So it's like, it is what it is. It was put out. There was not a lot of extension of the fire. We were able to keep it right in that. It was around a microwave. And that was the morning's business today after a call down on Larkin Road. So it's been kind of interesting. And also even on the community engagement part, we saw our first community engagement, and we did some CPR and AED, which is the automatic external defibrillator for the Council on Aging staff. And they were very happy with the training. I got really, really good feedback from my personnel on how it went. And that was the first of our monthly, and then we do professionals for civilians in July, and then we do professional training in August. So that's how it will go. Be civilian 1 month, professional the next. So that went really good. And that's something that was very helpful in the budget to have that. And it wasn't a lot of money, but every little bit helps. And they're already building a really good rapport with the community on just that little program in its own. And I know Peg's favorite thing is the community, is the house numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We kicked that can really hard, did some signage. And it's funny because I was just on a short trip into New York State on the motorcycles this past weekend, Saturday to Wednesday. And I noticed some really nice street number signs. There was like a square board. They had the shape of the community on them in yellow. And then they had the number in red or orange. One community had orange and one had red, but it was really a good contrast for the one at the street. And it had a little the shape of the community it was in had like their boundaries was the background, and that was all yellow. Then that number was painted across the yellow. So they really stuck out and jumped at me going down this street. And I saw them in like at least 3 or 4 or 5 different communities, very, very similar ones. So it's like something to keep in the memory banks as we move forward. And it's like if we needed to do it, one for Berlin was very, very effective in the number just leapt at you coming down the street. So I was like, it made me smile to see that. I said, yep, they've had issues with the house numbers here and they did it the right way. So it's like, and then you also have the fire prevention activity report. 5 of the 7 buildings at Riverbridge have been completely been inspected and are up for occupancy. So 5 of the 7 there are up and running. And the 2 more other ones are in different stages of being inspected. And the fire marshal spends almost time every day. I don't think there's many days that he's in that he does not go there. So it's like, that's kind of like our activity. And one of the other interesting things one more thing I got before you, if you want to fire some questions at me, is in 2019, we did 681 responses. And so far this year, even with the COVID slowdown from the beginning of March, we're at 558 already. So it's, and we still got 4 strong months to go. So it's like, it's interesting to see where those numbers are going. So it's like, there's a change. It's been busy. I think yesterday they did 5 calls in one day on a Sunday, which is extraordinary for here on a Sunday. So it's like, they were kind of, the staff was hyped up this morning when I saw them. So it's like, Chief, we had 5 calls yesterday. So that's a good day. They like being busy. But that's kind of like it in a nutshell. We've been supplying some PPE to the town clerk's office for tomorrow so that they can keep the election staff and the counters safe when they do their business tomorrow. And we get a good supply of that. We got a big supply from MEMA, and at the same time, we got a nice grant from the federal government at FEMA for over $13,000 to buy PPE related to COVID. So we got some equipment that's in the process of being purchased. One is an important thing is a backpack electrostatic sprayer that you can spray the building, you can spray the apparatus, you can spray a police car to, and then within a couple of minutes it kills whatever could be COVID in there if it's present. You just spray it, it dissipates after you put it on, and it's not a hazard. So one of those is ordered. You might not see it till the beginning of October because of the demand for them, but they're ordered. So it's like we've had some really good luck on the grant through both MEMA and FEMA. So it's like got to keep cranking on them, get what we can out of those organizations all the time. And that's kind of, yeah. And the only other thing maybe is like the highway's been really, really busy with some really, really serious things. So it's like we did one with the town of Bolton that I would put in my probably top 10 or 15 after 44 years on the Mass Pike and 495. So it was like some, there's still some ferocious things that happen out there that the guys deal with. They did a really good job. It was a recovery rather than a rescue, but nothing. Yeah, they did the best they could, and it was like the highway's the highway. So it's like, but I was proud of the way the guys acted.
Do we provide any sort of crisis training or crisis mental health for after an event like that? Because from the stories I heard, there was some resuscitation ability, but ultimately did not pass, did not work. The person, it was a fatality. Yep. That could play on people's mental health.
CIS, the critical incident stress debriefing was held at Bolton Fire. Okay. I think it was last Monday night. And between that and another organization, all of our people that responded attended.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, that's a good question, Scott. That's a critical part of anything. And it's like, and there's been a lot of training, and that's one of the things I have to be very, very aware of after an incident. And it's like, especially when you have, we have a really young crew here, and it's like, you got to watch them. They stick their nose in anything that you give them, but you also got to protect them on the other end when things are done and they have time to sit back and think about what they just dealt with. So that's a good question. Thank you. It's like an important part of the job. We don't say much about it because but it's a critical part of the job.
If I could add too, Chief, our employee assistance program through our insurer also does provide some crisis intervention services.
Yep. I think we've made use of that in the past. There's another one that's public safety related that's up in Gardner. It's On-Site Academy. And we for many, many, many years, sent personnel up there to assist them in the things that they deal with. So, it's a very important part. You can't downplay that at all. I can't tell you how important that is to be able to have that a phone call away. And actually, the director up there is on my speed dial. So it's like that's how often I've used them over the years.
Good.
Great people. Great job.
Does anybody else have any questions for the chief?
Hey,
Peg.
go ahead, Peg.
Nope, Scott goes first.
the ISO fire rating for this town, has that changed at all over the last several years? So we've gone from an on-call department to a staff department?
I think it may go up a notch if we do our next ISO. But the biggest thing that you deal with here is the lack of water.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's really a killer. So
Yeah.
it's like, but it is what it is. But we're also, you develop operationally. The town was very helpful, and they upgraded a pumper tender that we had, and it's a new one's out being made, and we should see it sometime, maybe the beginning of June of 21. So it's like, but you develop your operational plan of the apparatus around what your weaknesses are in the community.
Yep.
And that's one of the ones that we had to, that's specifically to meet the demand for no water, no water, no water. So,
Right.
but it is what it is, you know? It's
Yep.
like, even where I came from, we were like 70-30 or, you know what I mean, 75-25. And it was like, plus the highways have no water. So I'm used to dealing with that, but I'm used to having them most places. But that's been probably my biggest challenge. And I say it with a smile on my face coming in here. Operationally, there's not much water to use, but you gotta, its application is the way that you win that battle. You don't waste it, and you put it where it needs to go.
Yep. I just know that was one of the was one of the small benefits we would get at by going from a call to a staffed department, was expecting that number to get better, which results in slightly lower costs for people on their homeowners insurance and for businesses on some of their insurance as well.
Yeah, there's two numbers that you get, and it's like one of them will definitely be the investment in the per diem staff at night, in that 24/7, 365 response will definitely do some kind of improvement. I don't know how much sitting here, because it's been a while since I've been,
Yeah.
It's probably been 12 years since I've been involved with ISO. So it's like, be interesting to see how that improves. And just like you said, there's a related insurance saving to the townspeople of Berlin when that improvement is made.
Okay. You have any other questions, Scott?
No, that was my question.
Okay, Peg.
All right, I got 5. All right,
Oh,
Margaret.
cool.
Well, it's my job. Margaret, first question to you. Where Chief mentioned signs throughout New York, as Assabet starts getting on its feet, or maybe even Bay Path, where Dave got, I can't remember the young gentleman's name from. Is it Aiden? Thank you. Is it possible to start reaching out to those schools to see what costs would be that maybe we ask through the town, that we put a prototype out there to say, hey, would you like this sign, you know, this type of sign, to see what it would cost and if there's any interest, and then what you'd sell it for? Is that a possibility? Can't hear you, Margaret. Nope.
Margaret's
Sorry.
on mute.
Yes, she is.
There we go.
I try very hard to curb. Yes, it's absolutely a possibility to reach out to Assabet and ask what the cost would be. I think I would probably ask for Chief's help with this, and maybe kind of delegate this to him and the fire marshal to kind of go. What do you think, Chief? You okay with that?
That's what TAs are for. Delegate it down when you can. That's fine. We'll tackle that like it's a ball carrier.
Well, I'm just thinking that maybe, you know, it might be of more interest if you can pay, I don't know, I'm going to make it up, you know, $10 to have a rather funky sign, you know, of your street number that has a map of the town of Berlin in back of it, or has the little Powder House logo in back of it, rather than, seriously, I need to go to Lowe's and I need to find out the size number that I need and where am I going to put it and where are they going to see it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, town pride. So I figured, you know, why not? Assabet's there, Blackstone's there. There's probably other vocational schools in the area that maybe you could ask. And then it also gives the school, you know, a sense of pride too. You know, that they can put on the back, made by Assabet, something, I don't know, but figured that I would throw that out there. But yeah,
Okay.
Of course we need, you know, design specs, blah, blah, blah. And then once we get that, gauge interest in the town to see if anyone would want one. All right, so that's one. Question 2, Chief, you had talked about CPR classes, and you said that's open to the public?
Yep.
Is there a schedule out there? Because I know that I'd love to take that, and or any type of, like basic first aid that you have.
The next September will be professional, which is like firefighters, EMTs, police, nurses, something like that. When we get it roll into October, how we set it up was they can call the admin manager Sharon's number and
Yep.
get on the list. And the
Okay.
the list is simply driven by the span of control of the instructors and the students. And if it's like, if we only have 4 students, we do 1 instructor. If we have more, we bring in other instructors to help do it. And it's
Okay.
like, but we definitely can, like, I don't think that they've set a date yet for October, but I'll make a note here to crank that up tomorrow.
Cool. Third question. So the fire marshal, how is that coming along with him training current members of the fire department, so that in his absence, or if there's like a giant increase and multiple inspections are needed, that there's backup? So how is that coming along now that we're kind of sort of moving back to normal, whatever you want to phrase normal as?
Okay, the on-duty crews have been attending with the fire marshal out to do inspections on commercial, not so much the residential, but the commercial buildings. In the residential buildings, oil burners, propane. We're waiting for the academy to get cranked back up after the COVID stuff. They're not quite now. They're just starting to do some stuff online, but the building's not open to be able to, like, we're waiting for that to get rolling. So we got career staff, which is Lieutenant Polino and Firefighter Wheeler. They can start going to the academy and catching the propane classes, the oil burner classes, the ones on residential smoke detectors and things like that. And we can augment that with Dave. We're just waiting. We're just through the luck of all the things that the COVID has done. That's also one other thing that is affected.
Every year, the fire department has car wash. I usually wait to wash my car until it's absolutely filthy dirty, and then I bring it down the fire station. Well, I'm thinking if you can offer vacuuming too, I'd be really seriously, willing to
Fire
bring
department detailing.
Fire department detailing. Any talk about that this year? I think it's usually in the fall. I don't know.
That's the first time since I've been here. That's the first I've heard they did car washes. So it's like I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
That's like usually something that the association may do. It's not like an official fire department sponsored event, but the association handles it and raises a little bit of money for whatever they're doing. So it's like, but no, I'll ask around tomorrow. I hadn't heard that thing. Yes.
No, I can, I remember Sharon standing right out, kind of like in the center of town, flagging people down to bring their car down. It was nice. It was a donation, and it got people a chance to talk to all the firefighters in town too, and kind of wander around inside and look at things. So it served a dual purpose. And then lastly, how is the deputy chief doing? How's he working out? Staff, how's he feeling?
Fantastic. I had to leave an officers meeting to come here for your meeting. We started at 1800 or 6 o'clock, and the deputy took over when I left in there, and they're in the conference room right now. I'm in my office. So we have that once a month where we have take the officers together and talk about operational issues, whatever you got to talk about as part of any organization. And I am very, very happy that he's here. He brings a level of professionalism that is very high. Got a lot of street experience, and he's very well learned on fire department matters. And I'm very blessed, to be honest with you, to have him. I've had 2 deputy chiefs in my career, and both of them have been at the same level that they're at. So I'm very blessed, and I think the town of Berlin is very lucky to have someone with a commitment like that, and also that drive to make the fire department better, which in turn makes the town of Berlin better as we move forward.
Good question. How often is he around? Is he here? Is he here full time, or a couple days a week, or
he does
Margaret shaking her head no?
He does 4 hours a week.
Okay.
So he's a career firefighter and a captain on a operational group in Northborough. So he works it around his permanent work schedule. You know what I mean? If he has an open day here, he'll give me 3 or 4 days notice. Hey, I'll be in Tuesday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we get it done like that, and we usually have an agenda that him and I cover for the day, and he takes responsibility for some developing some stuff at the station. We're doing evaluation of hose all the way up from the big 5-inch all the way down to the 1.5-inch stuff. So it's like he's doing that. So I couldn't be happier. He's like he brings like a positive attitude, which is so important. I've worked with people that have been really smart but don't have good work attitudes, and he just brings that. And he's like, and he gets along really good with the members on our blue team also. So that's important in a town like this. It's important everywhere, but critically important in the way that we work so closely with Chief Galvin and his personnel. So it's a really good fit both ways. And I'm very happy with it. And I know he is. We talk about it. And then when we're doing our projects, and it's like, yep. And I think that he meets or exceeds everything that I thought that the position could be. And
Awesome.
thanks for supporting that.
Awesome. All right, those are my 5, maybe more. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Peg.
Thank you, Chief. Good questions.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chief.
thanks, Chief.
Okay, you guys are all set?
All set. Have a good night. Stay
Okay.
safe.
If you know me, you know where I am. I know the COVID stuff doesn't allow you to visit much, but wear your mask. And come
Before
visit.
Chief leaves the meeting, we're going to be having a meeting this week on ambulance billing process updates. So just so the board knows, we're on it.
Yeah. Margaret's been hammering that. She's been kicking that can hard, Peg.
Well,
Yeah,
because,
sure.
yeah, because Chief, Margaret knows that either now Scott's on the bandwagon to go after that billing, or June, who's sitting in the audience, knows that at least once a month I am after her on the billing. So
Yep.
You got 2 people coming after you if Margaret doesn't.
Yeah. Well, we've got on the billing, we've got a lot of good feedback from Coastal on how we've been preparing the material to go over to them to be posted up for them for the billing. So it's like Sharon's done a really good job with that, and it's like I'm very happy with that. And we've got some good comments back from Kathy and the leadership at Coastal, and now we just got to get this next part of that pie done so that we can get as many of those returns as possible for the community.
It's time to flow chart it. That's
Oh,
what I say.
God.
Time to flow chart it.
Margaret's going to teach me that.
Well,
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Good night, ladies. Take care.
Thank you,
Chief.
Thank you, Scott. Take care.
All right, and we'll just move right into our next appointment with COA Director Victoria Flynn.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Hi, Victoria.
Hey, how are you?
Victoria,
Hi, good. How are you guys all doing tonight?
very
Not
good.
you.
Oh, good. Happy Monday.
I have to unmute if I'm going to comment.
So, all right. So it's been a busy almost 2 months for me since starting with the Council on Aging. So I'll just give you guys a rundown of what we've been working on and just what we're hoping to do, as the rest of the year progresses. So the Council on Aging is really excited. We're going to be we're co-sponsoring the Berlin Seniors event for Jackson Gilman. Hopefully the weather holds for Thursday. So we're excited to see this. It'll be a good time, I think, something that, a lot of people can look forward to. So we're doing that. As Chief Clark mentioned, he did do a AED first aid CPR training for a few of us at the Council on Aging, particularly our van drivers, because now the van is officially up and running. So that was good news. We were very happy, to get the assistance of Chief Clark and Chief Galvin for that. So they both have been wonderful to the council, so we're really happy with that. And in terms of the van, it's now up and running. We have drivers 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And at this point, because of COVID, we're really restricting it to basically medical appointments and like necessity appointments, like to the grocery store, to the pharmacies, things of that nature. And we are, taking along with the state guidelines, riders need to have their temperatures checked, need to, have a COVID screen, and need to have a mask on at all times while they're in the van. And then the same thing with our drivers, who have been great so far. So we're anxious to get, more and more people in the van. So if you guys need a ride, please call the Council on Aging. So in addition to that, we are working also to just really get some of the basic programs that we had back up and running again as well. So for Tai Chi and yoga, we're looking into doing like an outdoor version of both of them. We're gonna, I think, kind of like pilot it after Labor Day, just to see, how many people are gonna show up and how is it gonna be. So that's the plan for that. As it gets colder out, we will brainstorm and we will figure out kind of what the next, logical step for that would be. But for now, because it's at least nice out, we're hoping, for at least about a month or so to do it outside. And then in addition to that, we are working to get some trainings and some webinars, not only just, through like Zoom and other social media platforms, but also with cable access as well. So we have a webinar scheduled actually for October 6th. It's the first Tuesday of the month, I believe. And it's Medicare fraud. It's Medicare fraud awareness. The Elder Services of Merrimack Valley is actually putting it on for us. So we're really excited about that because unfortunately that does not stop. Especially with COVID, it's unfortunately rampant. So we're excited to just get that information out there to the public. The Powder House News is coming out every other month. And at this point, if there's anything that, we're basically getting updates from all the departments, from Margaret, from Mary. So if there's, we're happy to have the three of you on our latest edition. So thank you all for your time. I think it's going to be a good read. So, not that they all aren't all, but, and then, so just beyond that, we're really just trying to look ahead. We're also taking inventory of what we have. So we have durable medical equipment down in our, basically our big room down in the town offices. We've done an inventory of that, and the council and I have kind of decided that there's some of it that we don't need to keep for town purposes. We have like some CPAP machines, oxygen machines, hospital bed, things that are just too big that the public, we don't know the safety of it, things like that. So we're looking to properly have those be donated. But we have like some smaller equipment like wheelchairs, walkers, things of that nature that we are still willing to, provide to the public. Working with MIA, the insurance company, they've basically stated to us that we would basically have to let people, tell them that it's take as the condition that it is, that, we have done what we can to, make sure that it's, clean and ready to be repurposed, but kind of take at your own risk kind of a thing. So just out there.
If I could add to Victoria through the chair, Maya has made it very clear that there will have to be signage that the equipment will be take at your own risk, because the town cannot assume liability for it. So so Victoria's correct. That's the way we'll have to approach this. Thanks, Victoria.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're doing in a nutshell. Myself, the council, Peggy Sardell, we're also working for the senior tax write-off program for any seniors in the town who would like to, potentially work off some of their tax money. You can certainly supply an application to us, and Margaret and I are going to be working with the department heads to get people placed, because we've gotten a few applications, and we want to make sure if people want this opportunity that we do everything we can to provide it. So that's my 2 months in a nutshell.
Terrific.
Good. You've done some great stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So have you had meetings, COA meetings?
We've had two, both on Zoom, and they've gone well, I think. I was part of the CPR AED first aid training that, that Chief Clark helped to organize. So, I think every little bit, this is my first meeting with you all since starting, so this is nice. And I know I'm excited about coffee talk down the road too. And I will be drinking actual coffee because I'm addicted. So
Mary used to make it when we had the meetings in person. It was awesome. She got the whole town jazzed on caffeine at 8 o'clock at night.
I mean, mine will be decaf, or, you know, my husband may not be thrilled, but, you know, that's okay. That's okay. So.
Well, that sounds great, Victoria.
Yeah.
And
So
it's great. Go ahead.
thank you. We're trying to be practical. Unfortunately, you know, with COVID, we don't know what's coming. And, you know, unfortunately, we can't plan as far out as we would have liked to, I think. You know, we're really just kind of taking this, you know, season at a time. And we really want to be able to help try to educate, you know, people of Berlin to, you know, recognize the technology that we have, like a Zoom, Facebook Live, things of that nature too. So we're working with the cable access just to see if we can get some kind of educational kind of tutorials out there too. So if people want to join our meetings, or if people want to participate in local events, like for example, I know the Clinton Senior Center is doing bingo through Facebook Live, and not everybody may know how to do that. So we figured if, you know, we're going to start this process to try to bring in some more education and more awareness to really important topics, you know, big and small. So hopefully it'll help us stay connected with the seniors as well as everybody in Berlin. And hopefully, you know, will serve as, you know, a good tool for all. So that's the hope.
That's great.
Thank you.
And I love the sign is that the sign that's going on the side of the van? That was in the picture that Mary must have sent us?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. So yes, and then I have to thank Margaret and Mary for helping us get the decals on the van. That was
that was a day.
That was a day.
We're having fun.
We were. I mean, you know,
for a while.
With your masks on and.
So, I mean, we were very thankful for that as well. You know, the van, we're really happy. The van, it's a beautiful van. I don't know if you all have seen it yet, but please come out. It's a nice ride. We have, you know, our brand new AED in there, thanks to Chief Clark and the fire department for helping us purchase that. You know, we've got a cooler that's basically full of PPE. Oh yes, here we are.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was a nice 90-degree day out too, so it made it super fun.
It's fun.
Yeah. So we have, you know, a cooler. It's full of PPE. Both chiefs, Clark and Galvin, have been really good with getting us the PPE that we need for the van. So we have plenty of masks, plenty of ways to keep it disinfected. So I just would like to urge the public that, you know, please, you know, if you're concerned about germs or concerned about, you know, any contamination, you know, please be aware that we do, you know, we wipe down the van after every ride, and we have plenty of PPE on the van to accommodate, you know, whatever is needed. So
that's great. Are there any other questions for Victoria? Two.
Hi, Peg. Oh, I'm
Victoria.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Peachy keen. So on the community stuff, have you reached out to AARP? Doesn't that makes me sound old? Because I know that they have like a community connection. I didn't know if there's any way to tap on to that to see what they do for folks.
Yeah, I've been starting to really kind of research and just see what resources are out there, because why reinvent the wheel? I haven't dug too much into AARP yet. It's definitely going to be added to my list. Just again, I've been looking a lot like on the Mass Council on Aging website. Even like YouTube has some really good uses as well. So, you know, like I said, it's basically at this point we're all like all the councils on aging are all in the same boat. So, you know, if we can all share resources, why not? That's the hope, at least.
Cool. And I'm glad that you're here tonight, because as I was sharing with the crew before you got here, in the Community Advocate, Friday, August 28th, there is a lovely article that I am happy to drop off like at the town office for you. But it says Senior Center finds revived sense of community in social distant drive-through events. So, you know, as you said, it's getting a little bit colder, you know, maybe not this year, but you know, Southborough does it. There was another town around here that did it. Bellingham does it, where folks, hot dogs, hamburgers, peppers, sausage, onion, people just come up, you know, $5 or whatever. Volunteers, you know, cook it, they run it out, they drop it off in the car. It's just another opportunity to, it's nice to see you, but I can't see you, but, you know, just to get it out there. So again, thought, you know, you have the 1870 house, there's a kitchen in there, you know, maybe next year we can start to, you know, work with Lisa and see how this can be done, get the word out, you know, amongst town. They talked about the way that they got the word out, because a lot of the seniors don't have access to computers. So something that Bob Blair had come up with, it's just a calling campaign. You know, when you get the list of seniors and you're like, hey, on Thursday, we're having a blah, blah, blah. Are you interested? You know, it's $5, you know, place your order and we'll run it out to the car when you get here type of thing. But just thought that that was kind of cool to do.
No, that's very cool. Absolutely.
Okay,
Something
I'll
to
drop
consider.
it off. Yep, drop it off to you.
Thank you.
You betcha. As you say, why invent the wheel when somebody else has and I can just steal it out of a newspaper and pass it along?
There you go.
Why not?
So, well, I'm really looking forward to the event on the 3rd of September.
As are we.
And just to remind people, if they're coming, I guess they need to RSVP.
Yes.
Is there a phone number or an email?
It is through the Berlin seniors. They need to contact Judy, Judy Mills. I don't have her contact information, but if anybody's interested, they could call. They could even call my number, and I could or Mary. Okay, Mary could connect them with Judy.
Okay. Is it because of the numbers? They need to make sure that there's less than 50 people.
Yeah, they had 41 as of the other day.
Nice.
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 Yeah.
Nice.
Very good.
So, and we will be there to help, you know, set up any chairs, umbrellas, things of that nature as well. So just, if you need a hand, we will be there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you at Coffee Talk.
Yes, especially
Yes.
with the coffee.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Victoria. Glad
Thank
you're
you,
here.
Victoria.
Victoria. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.
All right. It's not quite 8 o'clock. Margaret, do you want to go ahead with your town administrator report?
Sure. I have to look up. I don't know if I'm mute or not, but I don't think I am. Okay.
You're not mute.
There are a lot of wheels turning here. It's kind of like a locomotive. So I'm going to try to only hit on the priority items in my report. My report will be uploaded to the website, and people can certainly take a look at it after tonight's meeting. So first, on the COVID health emergency, effective last week, you've probably heard that the states of Colorado, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia have been added to the lower risk states. So our list of lower risk states is growing incrementally. People should go to mass.gov to the COVID-19 webpage for the latest details if they're interested on the state of the crisis, et cetera. The FY21 annual performance appraisal process has begun. I emailed the board today and asked for a summary, feedback for the department head appraisals that I'll be conducting. So I'd like to incorporate any feedback you have into my discussion and into the reviews with the department heads. The deadline for submission of the performance appraisal forms is September 25th. So there's just under a month left. I've made appointments with all department heads for their one-on-one meetings, or I've sent out a calendar. They can pick their date. The HR comp and class plan, I know the board's going to have a discussion tonight. On August 12th, I invited the board and the Personnel Committee to submit questions and comments to me for me to distribute to the consultant and to the board and personnel. Hopefully tonight there'll be a few comments or questions that come out of this, and I can certainly circulate those questions. As of today, the consultant was uploading a lot of job descriptions to a shared file that she has set up. I'm going to be talking with the Personnel Committee about it tomorrow night and sharing the draft job descriptions with the board. There are a lot of them. Benefits consulting. This was our third attempt at issuing a request for quotes for benefits consulting. This is for the town to look to see if there are potential cost savings through plan design changes and to investigate the possibility of retiree health insurance for employees. We actually received only one quote, but Dennis, the town treasurer, and I are reviewing the quote and checking municipal references to see if it is a vendor that we are interested in bringing before the board for introductions on September 8th. So we're in the process of doing that right now. I attached to this, it wasn't the most recent, but I attached to my TA report tonight sample free cash guidelines. Free cash guidelines, according to DLS, are a financial best practice. They do recommend that cities and towns develop free cash guidelines or policies to assure that there is free cash generating to the future year's free cash. So please take a look at those sample guidelines. FinCom is going to be reviewing and discussing those at their next meeting on September 9th. The next item I have on my report is the FY21 tax rate setting process. Now, at your, I think it was your last meeting, the board did vote, oh no, was it your last meeting, a recent meeting, I'm getting them all mixed up now. You did vote to proceed with preliminary estimated semi-annual tax billing. So the administrative finance team met on August 26th. We talked about this. We believe, just like with the other things the board had to do on a contingent basis because of COVID, we actually do believe there is a good possibility that we will be able to issue regular semi-annual tax bills this fall and be ahead of schedule compared to last year. Last year, we were a full month plus late in sending the tax bills, and that had to do with the first year of CPA. This year, we are shooting for a tax bill mailing of October 13th, which is it's about 2 weeks behind the October 1st target date, with tax bills due on November 12th. So hopefully we are on track for that. We are meeting again tomorrow morning to check to see where each of us is at with the Department of Revenue. We all have different pieces of this that we need to accomplish. I do know that June filled in the recap sheet today. We are going to prepare to submit that after the board's tax classification hearing, which is going to be scheduled for September 21st. If we are unable to get all the information we need from DOR, including values, certified or approved by the hearing date, I will recommend that the board continue the hearing for a week so we can give DOR more time for their approvals. All right, so it looks like we are actually on track to have the regular tax rate setting process in play this fall, which is very, very good news. Today, I officially kicked off the FY22 capital request process. Departments, boards, and committees have exactly 2 months to prepare their capital requests and get them submitted to the Capital Planning Committee in accordance with the bylaw. So capital requests will be due by Monday, November 2nd, in order to be considered by the Capital Planning Committee. The library septic is also on a roll. We're moving with that. Today we had the second mandatory site visit. 5 vendors showed up to this one. So a total of 7 vendors showed up to the mandatory site visits. I am hopeful that we'll get a couple of bids in by the due date and time, which is this Wednesday at 10 a.m., at which time the bids I will publicly open the bids outside the front door of this building. So feel free to swing by if you'd like to see the public bid opening. We do not evaluate bids when they're opened. We strictly open the bids that are received by the deadline. So Mary, if you wouldn't mind, I would appreciate you being my witness for the public bid opening. Okay, so we'll be doing that at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. Next. There's a lot of stuff in between this, but I'm jumping down to the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee that the board established recently. I've asked members if they would be available for a kickoff meeting either the 14th, 15th, or 16th of September. So it looks like we're going to be meeting one of those days for our official kickoff meeting. And Chief Galvin has confirmed that he will attend the board's coffee talk on the 17th. And this will be part of what he talks about, the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. While we were meeting, I've just received the draft phase 1 environmental site assessment report from Fuss and O'Neill on the Tolman property. I haven't even opened it yet. It just came in. So we'll be looking at this draft report on phase 1, and I'm hopeful that the report will result in us being eligible for funding under the phase 2 brownfields assessments. There have been recent complaints about trucking activity going to Maplewood Farm. There's been increased activity. I urge residents to continue to call the town if there is trucking activity that is not compliant with the settlement agreement, and we will contact the police immediately to follow up. Victoria already talked about the Berlin Seniors and COA co-sponsored event, so that's on for this Thursday at 10 o'clock. CMRPC, this is a little bit on the Village Center Strategic Plan. I've learned through Kerry Salwa at CMRPC that they've submitted a $2.5 million regional grant application to the U.S. Economic Development Agency for CARES Act funding for several different business assistance initiatives. So I expect a summary from CMRPC on that, and we'll be able to share that with all of our businesses. These initiatives include things like internships through WPI to assist businesses with building their websites, a 10-month partnership in entrepreneurship where there will be mentors to work with businesses start to finish to build their small businesses. There are webinars and other educational components being offered by the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce. CMRPC is working with Central Mass Grown to work with farmers markets to be able to provide an e-commerce website. There's a Latin American business organization that is working with CMRPC. Targeted toward minority-owned businesses, and there's a lot of other stuff. So I hope to be able to get a concise summary from CMRPC. With regard to the Village Center Strategic Plan, Kerry is going to be, or has established a Dropbox to put documents for Berlin in, and we've had a small local stakeholders group consisting of Chief Galvin, Tim Wheeler, Peter Hoffman, EDC Chair, Chris Keefe, Jay Tesh, and Evie Dewick. There's been this small stakeholders group to talk about the Village Center strategic plans and how we get to the point of a final report. She did update us that Mass Development, CMRPC, and Mass Office of Business Development will be here likely in the spring for a walkthrough when it's allowed. They've been significantly delayed by COVID. So yeah, so there are things happening with the Village Center strategic plan. I know I'm very long-winded tonight, but there's a lot going on here. Okay, I think Peg mentioned at the last meeting that the Municipal Energy Technical Assistance Grant application has gone in. We're still waiting to hear if we'll get some funding to allow a consultant to work with the town to evaluate ground or roof mount solar at the highway barn and assist the town in developing an RFP for municipal solar on that building or at that building. The MVP, Peg, you were talking about this earlier, the MVP report. The community listening session that was originally scheduled for last Thursday night has been rescheduled to this this Thursday evening at 6:30. Details are on the town's website. This is for the entire community to listen to what is contained in the 80% draft MVP report that CMRPC will submit to the state on our behalf. And I received one other thing. This is more late breaking news, but RCAP Solutions, which is I guess it's a nonprofit organization that provides assistance in environmental type issues in municipalities, small water systems and things, has received a grant to assist qualifying homeowners in the North Central Massachusetts area with free on-site professional review of their wellhead and recharge areas, a recharge area. They will be over several years, will be able to conduct tests of private wells. They'll do free private well assessments, private well water testing, and provide additional resources for private well owners. A second phase of this effort would include continued public education and advocacy for private well regulations. So I am forwarding this information to the Board of Health, and we'll put up something that's concise on the town's website so people can have direct contacts with RCAP Solutions to look at their the status of their wells. And finally, the state primary is tomorrow. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Here at the town offices. Voting will occur downstairs. And hopefully everything goes smoothly. And that's it.
Okay, any questions for Margaret?
Just two. So first of all, thank you, Margaret, to providing the information regarding the community garden. It's, you know,
yeah.
as a member of that garden, it bothers me, it makes me sad that people just come in and think it's their own personal grocery store. And, you know, people spend a lot of time down in there. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of effort for people to have their gardens. And, you know, Margaret, I've dropped some off with you. Mary, I've dropped some off with you. Chris, I never see you. You know, Scott, I never venture up your way. But I mean, the bounty that you get from that, it's just nice. So to be able to maybe offer some help to the agricultural group to figure out what they can do to stop the thievery. It's sad that it has to come to that, but thank you for jumping in on that.
That commission will be meeting down at the community garden on the 8th or 9th this month.
I mean, I don't want to see it come to a gate with a lock, but you know what? If it comes to a gate with a lock, so people can feel comfortable, knowing that, hey, my squash isn't quite ready. I'm going to go down tomorrow and voila, it's gone. It is what it is. You know, unfortunately, you can't control the behavior of other people. And then you had talked a little bit during one of your things where internships. Has the town ever given any thought to offering like our own internships, you know, for people who might be interested in public government? So, you know, Margaret mentoring, you know, you being the mentor for that. You know, I'm offering up June just because she's on the call and she's probably sitting there saying not nice words at me right now, but people that might be interested in finance. I mean, is there any opportunity for us to start thinking about that and doing an outreach to local schools in the area?
There absolutely is. A lot of students actually this spring lost their internships. So I think it's incumbent upon us to reach out to see if anything's available. Now, Mary and I actually just talked last week, our HR component, we need to be centralizing personnel files. So I would love to have an intern come in here to be able to assist us with not only cleaning the existing personnel files and making sure that the proper records are in each of the files, but also to help us consolidate the multiple departments' personnel records. So I think that would be a wonderful opportunity for an intern. Yes.
Those will also make great senior work-off projects too.
That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah,
It would be. This one might be longer than one single senior tax work-off program, but yes, there's an applicant through the senior tax work-off program that we're looking to have do something similar, digitizing files, things like that.
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Great. Is that your two, Peg?
That was my two.
All right.
Margaret, it's already a really long report, so I hate to say that is there something else for it, but the drains, what are those called? Culverts, wash drains. We have
Yes. Yeah.
one that apparently has a very long history.
Okay.
And so I don't want an update now, but if at some point we could get an update that gets us to some sort of resolution about it up on Barnes Hill.
Okay. I will. And Scott, honestly, this is the first I've heard about this particular one. I know a lot about the West Street one, but
Do I have the wrong street then? It's the one that
No.
you forwarded the email
Barnes
to
Hill.
all of us. Yeah, I thought it was
It is
Barnes Hill.
Barnes Hill.
It is
Okay.
Barnes Hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I will check on that. Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Richard Drive. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Oh no, yes, we are working on it. In fact, I actually, yeah, we're working on it on 2 different fronts. We're working on it on the subdivision front and on the storm drain front. Yes.
Yeah, I thought you were. It's just it's not. I didn't see it on the report. And I know that's something you're spending some time and energy on. So
I can't. I could never guarantee that I include everything on my reports. I try.
That's it. That's all for me. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks. Thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome.
And it's kind of perfect timing. We're moving on to our appointment with the Highland Commons LQR.
Looks like we have.
We've got, do we have everybody promoted?
I'm here.
Okay.
Hello, Brian. Nice to see you again.
Good evening. Good to see all of you.
And nice to meet both of you. I've never met Andrew or James. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, everyone.
Okay. Well, I want to welcome all of you. I'll just say that that the reason we're having you come tonight was because it's been 2 years since the hearing for the liquor license, or almost 2 years. And the board has some questions regarding the application, the original application for the Highland Commons LQR. Maybe I'll just start by saying that I watched the video of our 2 meetings back on October 29th and November 5th of 2018. And there was a few things that drew my attention. These are some of the things that there may be some discrepancies from the present to the previous application. I just bulleted them. So I know that Andrew Upton had stated that the location of the liquor store would be in the dress barn location and the building next to it with a dirt floor. That it would be a total of 14,000 square feet, which would be 8 times more than RWJ, who was also vying for the liquor license. There would be 10,000 products to be sold. James stated that the dress barn is going to go, plus 7,500 square feet next to the dress barn would be used. Taxes paid to the town would be $31,188 per year. And the liquor store would employ 25 people, 5 full-time, 3 managerial, 17 part-time, and no nips would be sold. Those were the highlights that I saw in the video. And so I believe there's also some discrepancy between the paperwork that was filed originally and what's filed with the building inspector and the fire marshal, not to mention the address change. So I guess unless the board members have anything else, any other questions, I guess we could just start with some of the questions that I had.
All right. If I had a quick one, I could have swore I read this over the weekend and I cannot find it in the board folder for tonight. Am I missing it somewhere?
Missing what?
I thought there was a folder in our meeting for tonight that was specifically this application that I read over the weekend, and now I don't see a folder for it. What folder is it in?
It is in a folder called appointments, and it does seem to be intermittently disappearing. And I've already seen this happen tonight, and Margaret set me straight. So sometimes when you refresh and look at it again, it's there.
It's there, Scott. There's one, two.
I have it
it's
now.
like
Yep.
6 documents.
Thanks.
in there.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, it's weird.
All right. Thank you. So I don't know who would like to speak for Highland Commons.
Good evening, everyone. Andrew Upton for the applicant. With me is James Boglioli, attorney with Benderson Development, Keith and Cindy Leonard, who are the owners, and Jed Hayes, additional counsel. Let me just give you the overview of where we're at and try to drill down to some of the specifics that you referenced, Madam Chair. As you know, it was a long and winding road with RWJ essentially suing us, appealing to the ABCC, taking the matter to court. I'm happy to say that that is behind us. We've settled the matter. We are now in the process of building out the store, getting things going, and we're anxious to get going. Obviously, the applicant and the landlord and the community have lost a tremendous amount of time and resources in this process. And now that we're on the right track, we're anxious to get going and to use the license for the public good and for our own economic good. First thing I'll address is the address issue. We applied, I believe it was originally applied for, the number was 24, and the real address is actually 22, according to the building department. I believe that is a administrative and ministerial issue. The building hasn't moved. Our premises hasn't moved. It's exactly the same as we proposed it. And when I've had this issue in the past, we typically will file a letter saying it was previously known as 24 and now we'd like to call it 22. But the most important thing is we haven't moved anything anywhere. It's exactly the same place. We have, however, modified the floor plan a small amount. As you can see from, hopefully see from the documents, there's a 40 by 42 area on the, essentially the bottom right of the floor plan. That was previously racks and shelving. We would now like to adjust that to a locked storage area. It doesn't change the square footage of the licensed premise, doesn't change any aspect of the operation, does not change the amount of products we carry, but operationally they determined they needed some locked storage space, and that would be it. In my experience with the ABCC, that is not a change to the floor plan. That is not an alteration of the premises. It's a minor modification that the board can take into consideration or approve or acknowledge as you see fit. So we have that. There were a number of issues, as you know, raised by the ABCC in the investigators report. We have satisfied all of those. We have sent all the required information in. The ABCC is prepared to, should this board decide to approve a motion for reconsideration, which means approving the application in whatever form you decide tonight and send it back to the ABCC, they have everything they have asked for to complete their process. So other than that, that's the overview. I hope I've answered some of the questions. If you want to get into some more specifics, I can answer them. And also we have the principals here to discuss them.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit of concern about the square footage, which was original 14,725. The building inspector, I believe, has 12,000 square foot on in his file around there.
That I believe was an error in the application we filed. It left out the storage space, so we're going to amend that building permit application to include the storage space. Once that area is back included, is the same square footage that the board originally approved. Highland Commons Liquor still leases the full 14,000 square feet, plus or minus the exact amount that we presented. So none of it's changed ownership or leasing. It was just left off that building permit, and we can amend that building permit to include that. There is a door from that storage space into the main liquor store. So the square footage of the site, the leasehold, is not changed.
So you will still be using the Dress Barn location and the other store location next door
That is correct.
in total?
Yeah, it's still all part of the leased area.
Okay. And let's see, your employees, there would still be approximately 25 employees?
Good. Keith, you're muted, but the number of employees has not changed. There's Keith.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it'll still be the same amount of employees.
Does the board have any other questions?
So thank you, Chris, for sending along those videos. Same things. I found a lot of the same comments that you did. Andrew, can you confirm that you're still not going to sell nips up on the hill at Highland Commons?
We will not.
Yeah, no, we that was part of our application and part of our discussion and commitment to the board, and we'll stick with it.
And you're still looking at approximately $31,000 in taxes, given that there's a small change with the square footage?
I see Mr. Boglioli nodding.
Yes, the taxes are generally consistent with what we provided, and the number of SKUs, Keith, are the same, if not more, than we originally said to the board.
Right. There'll be no change in SKUs at all for the difference in the footage.
I had read somewhere that it would be around 8,000 SKUs, but it was originally, we were told there would be 10,000.
Well, it could be anywhere. I mean, that was the number that I gave you there at that meeting was a number of wine and liquor SKUs that we have currently in our store. That was excluding beer, which we do not have into that number. So it will probably be between that 8,000 and 10,000 number of SKUs.
Okay.
When you were visiting us, you were kind enough to pass along copies of your handbook. Since 2 years have passed, I would assume that it's updated and compliant with everything that's going on, and that will be distributed, and there'll be training programs for your 25 employees when they come on board?
Yes, there will. As far as the virus and other things, that will be updated for sure.
Okay. I had a question and I lost it. So Keith, you and your wife will still continue to be owners?
Yes.
And how are your businesses doing in New York? You noticing any uptick, downtick?
Yeah,
with
especially,
this?
well, in the beginning of, there was pretty good size uptick in the beginning. There was a lot of confusion on what was going to happen, if we were going to be essential or not. So customers were coming in, especially in the first couple of weeks, with a little bit of panic that they were going to be without. So, the business has been good. We notice customers are making just a single trip instead of 2 or 3 trips a week. They buy just more per visit. But business has been good.
You had stated in the video on 10/2 that you're thinking you could be open within 100 days of start of construction. Are you still planning on hitting that time frame? So what's that? 3 months, 3.5 months or so?
Well, we're hoping, we don't want to wait 3.5 months at this point to go through the holidays without the store being open. So we are definitely going to hit that number, and hopefully maybe 2/3 of that number.
When we knew we had resolved the issue with RJW, we released construction of the store to get a head start. So if you drive by there, it's currently under construction and being built, even though we knew we had to come back to you and finalize with the liquor authority. So to get a head start on it and be ahead of that, we're actually going to beat that time frame.
On your employees, you confirmed that there'll be no changes to the 25 folks that you'll be bringing on. And I can't remember and I couldn't find it, will there be any preference, for lack of a better word, to Berlin residents, or it will truly be based on those that have the skills that will require you to have a successful business?
Most of it will be based on the skills, but I mean, as far as to Berlin residents, I would think, we always take a look at the address of where people are coming from to see if it's a burden on them as far as travel. But most of it is going to be based on their expertise in either wine or spirits or other jobs that they've had that have, the part-timers, we look for people that are going to hustle and work in the store. So I wouldn't say it's just strictly Berlin, but it would be, they would be given an extra look for sure.
And no new changes for any type of traffic or rowdiness or noise up in that area?
No, everything is going to be like the remaining of the retail center. I know you're all very familiar with that. Everything's inside the building, enclosed like any other retail use.
And Keith, I guess I would ask you, is who will be the manager of record?
The manager, we've been interviewing. We've talked to 2 people. We actually just spoke with one today that we're trying to bring on board. So I do not have the manager right now, but we are actively and quickly trying to find that person.
Okay. At this point, Brian, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
This is our town council, Brian Riley. Because there are some differences in the application, I guess I would like to hear what you recommend to the board as far as either reapplying with an updated application, holding another hearing. I guess that's what I'm looking for.
Well, I think, and I have discussed this with Andrew some as well. I certainly don't think there's any requirement to kind of start from scratch. I mean, you went through the application process. I know 2 years is a long time, but and approved it, sent it up to the ABCC, and aside from all the appeal nonsense, they have already looked at it. They sent it back with that return no action, which was very lengthy, but they basically discounted all but 2 of the complaints that had been raised about it. And I think that's been corrected. Some things that were missing from the application, which needed to be in there, and now they are, I think. I mean, I honestly think that the things that what you've heard tonight,
Oops.
change just a number. I think the things that were needed to be corrected. It seems like they have been, and that relatively speaking, they were minor. And in terms of a new hearing, one, I don't think the ABCC is looking for that because they already, they sent it back looking for some things to be added, but not to start over. And also, in terms of where this is, there's not going to be any surprise for the neighbors being in the middle of this, big mall area. So I don't think, I don't think the neighborhood, outlook really is different. And so, so in terms of, legally, if this board approves it and sends it to the ABCC, I think the ABCC is going to have what they need as well. So I don't see a requirement or really even a practical purpose to kind of start over. That's my opinion.
Okay, so what we need to do, perhaps, if the board is in agreement, is just make the corrections if needed to the application. Whether it's the store size, the address. We probably appreciate a proper floor plan. Manager information. And I think there was some additional information that may be needed by ABCC with the return no action memo if it's not been corrected already.
I can confirm that all that information has been corrected, sent to the ABCC, and acknowledged by the investigator.
Margaret?
Madam Chair, I just have a few questions. If there is no new application required, how, and no license has actually been issued yet, how, and this is a question for Brian, how do we go about processing a change of manager then, if we have a different manager listed on the original application? And I also have other questions, if you just allow me to. How will we correct this, or how will the applicant correct the street number? Is this lease that was originally included still the same lease? Is it still effective?
The lease has not changed, and the square footage of the store has not changed.
Okay. And another question for Brian, where the town has actually established new alcohol license application regulations where local reviews are required and background checks are required and things like that, how would you suggest that the LLA handle that with this application that's still in process and a license hasn't been issued yet? It's just been a long time. I'm sorry. It's been a long time.
Right. I mean, in terms of the background checks, you know, maybe the board didn't have that in place before, but all the principals and manager have to go through a query check. The ABCC handles that. You know, that's been a part of the requirement there. I think as Andrew mentioned, the fact that the application says 24, it should say 22. I do think that's a very, ministerial change. I don't think that's going to be a monkey wrench to the ABCC at all. I was going to add to what I said the first time that, this got so complicated because of, RWJ's appeal. But typically what happens when you a local board approves an application, sent it to the ABCC, if the ABCC finds some, again, relatively minor things that are missing and feel they can't approve, they send back this return no action, and they want what we're doing right now to happen. They want the principals to get forward, correct the paperwork, so everybody's on the same page again. And then you simply send it back into the ABCC. It can happen in a night. It seems to me that the application technically it was approved 2 years ago. And so we certainly want to make sure the ABCC has what they need, the things that they flagged taken care of. You will, if the manager who was listed on the original application, now there's going to be a new one, you'll get a chance to meet that person and to sign off if you think he's appropriate, meets the requirements. And then the ABCC, of course, is going to do a background check on that person as well.
This is all before the board issues the license then, correct?
It'll go back to, I'm sorry, no. I mean, the change of manager can happen at any time. If they line somebody else up, they'll have to apply for a change of manager. But in terms of just kind of getting this application back to the ABCC, that doesn't have to wait. Managers change a lot of time, all the time for various reasons. So that in itself wouldn't need to be, hold up getting the license back in front of the commission again.
Okay,
you
so
wanna
just to
add
be
anything?
clear, the change of manager then, I'm sorry, through the chair, the change of manager then would be proactively filed by the applicant with the LLA, and the applicant would meet with the LLA over the change of manager, so the LLA could meet the new manager, and, okay,
Correct.
just want to be clear on that.
And then the ABCC has to then approve after that as well.
Would it be appropriate to have the application redone and sent to us, a copy sent to us? Because I don't think that the one we have on file is completely accurate. I mean, wouldn't it be appropriate for the LLA to have a copy of the application?
We're glad to do it any way you prefer. Typically, when there's a RNA like this from the investigator, we would submit amendments or supplemental documents, which the clerk or the town administrator would then append to the application. So when you submit it for reconsideration, the changes required or requested are attached to it. And then that would also be reflected on the LLA certification form where you mark for reconsideration.
But because it's been 2 years, I think it would, we'd appreciate it if you could send, you know, all of the documentation to us also.
Sure,
Would we still need copies of things that haven't changed though? This seems like a lot of, I am new to a process like this. I've only been on the board for what, 6 weeks now at this point. I do have a great deference to people who want to invest their own private capital in creating jobs and entrepreneurial spirits in the area. And so what I hear is they did, 2 years ago, there was an application we approved, we had hearings. There sounds like typographical type errors in it to me. What is some of the sort of facets? Because I'm kind of hoping that we as a town don't get to say over how many SKUs they're allowed or not allowed to have, because one would think over the course of business, as they sell things, they're going to drop things that aren't selling. They're going to, new alcohol and beer things are going to come out that they're going to want to sell. I hopefully you also don't have a say over how their rows and columns and how the inside of their store sort of looks. So I just want to.
I'm more concerned with the square footage difference and making sure that it's updated if it needs to be.
And the address too. I mean, it might be a typo, but
right. I think
you're going to want the legit address.
Right, and so it should be fixed. But so maybe Brian and Steve, what is the fastest and simplest way to fix what are, to me, typographical issues in their original application?
Well, I think as Andrew said, and I'll let him correct me, is that the things that the ABCC flagged that they want to see corrected, it really were a very, small portion of everything that was in the application. And so the applicant needs to provide the correct information, whether that's changing the number on the building, including there was someone who was part of the ownership who wasn't listed. I believe that was one of the things, and attach that and refile all of those corrections with the application back to the ABCC. I don't think it's a lot of paperwork we're talking about, Andrew.
No.
And the correct plan with the building commissioner, so he knows what he's reviewing as well.
Yeah, whether it's we have the correct plan or the building commissioner has the correct plan. That's.
I believe Andrew sent a copy of the correct plan, and we'll provide the building commissioner with that plan also. So I believe, Andrew, last week you sent in a copy of the correct plan, and we can certainly forward another copy of that and make the change again, and we'll get that to the building commissioner also.
Okay. And the things that I mentioned that I saw in the video, I'm hoping that if all we have is typographical errors and that kind of thing, that all of those things that were promised originally will be coming to the town.
This application for the most part remains unchanged. The same amount of SKUs, the same amount of employees, the generally same amount of taxes. It was a change in the way we laid the store out and the building address because of that change. I mean, those are really the two changes. I mean, they're minor.
And yeah, as long as the square footage is the same, then the taxes probably would be the same, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So yeah,
Right.
just want to make sure that the town has the correct data on file.
Yeah, you will have every, the things they need to correct, the board will have that as well, because all that has to go back up to the ABCC.
Okay.
So Keith, a question for you. You had mentioned in the video that all your employees would be TIP certified. Will the town be receiving copies of all those TIP certifications?
If you like them, for sure, there'd be no problem.
Okay. It would be nice just to have them on file. So if there are any questions, we can just say, we're good.
Sure.
I'd rather be a little bit proactive than get caught later.
No problem.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, so I'm hearing that.
I believe Margaret had another question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify. So what I'm understanding at the moment is that the applicant will provide information to correct the street address number, that the applicant will provide the most up-to-date plans with the building commissioner to give him a chance to look at those. I think I would appreciate it if the applicant would acknowledge in some way that the manager is in fact to be changed, and that will come before the LLA proactively so that the board can do its reviews of the manager and meet the manager.
I can speak to that part if you'd like.
Sure.
As you know, we appointed Mr. Kendall as the placeholder manager. This is a very common occurrence for projects that are licensed prospectively, because we're not going to hire, no one's going to take the job that starts in 6 months or 3 months or even. You have a placeholder manager, then right before you start, you hire one. And the Chapter 138 mandates that when we change the manager, we file a change of manager application, and it's our plan to do that before we open. And as a matter of fact, if you look at number 12 on the RNA report from the investigator, the RWJ folks tried to complain about us doing a placeholder manager, and that person was not going to be the real manager when the store opened. And the ABCC rejected that argument. They said it's perfectly fine to have a placeholder manager, and when you open, hire a full-time one.
So I have a follow-up question, and Brian or Andrew, I don't know which one it applies to, and I apologize if I missed it. I've been taking notes feverishly, so I'm sure while writing I've missed something. Quarry checks, who is responsible for doing those? Is that the town of Berlin?
Everyone who has an ownership interest or a management interest submitted a quarry check, and those quarry checks were run and confirmed by the ABCC during their review.
But what about the employees? I'm assuming that there'll need to be quarry checks done on them as well?
There is no legal requirement that there's a quarry check for liquor store employees.
Okay.
That's right. It's the manager and the management, so to speak, ownership.
So when were the quarries done? Because don't they last for what, 10 years? Or do they have to be redone every year?
No, they go back between.
They go back 10 years, correct. Right. So how long are they good for? Like if I applied to be, let's say that I was Keith 2 years ago and you ran a quarry check and, Keith is awesome, no issues. 2 years later, Keith did some bad stuff. Not that Keith did bad stuff, but let's say pretend Keith did some bad stuff. Will you be running new quarry reports or the quarry reports based on old Keith 2 years ago?
No, unless there's a change in the corporate structure or the manager, previously approved quarry applicants are not required to be re-quarried.
Okay.
That used to be true in all industries. Now in some childcare industries, they're required to do it more often, but I haven't heard about it needing to be done more often in any other industry. Margaret is asking another question.
Margaret.
She's muted.
Sorry, I don't mean to belabor this. I just have another question, yes. Triple I's, the board's policies that were recently adopted allow for us to conduct the III federal record review as part of the application process. So Brian, where would that fit in here?
Well, I think technically, as I said, this application was approved 2 years ago, and it would have, absent all these appeals, it would have come back from the ABCC in probably a couple of months, and the corrections would have been made and sent back again. So, I don't think that I don't think that the board can really require that when it wasn't on the books, in October of 2018.
Okay.
When a new manager is proposed, then maybe that's something that would apply there because that's new.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe we have a plan, do we?
I think so.
So, Andrew, if I could just ask, as far as, mechanically, I guess if you can make sure that whatever papers are needed to go back to the ABCC to answer the RNA, and then the Selectmen's office should be the ones to forward that up?
Yeah, I believe I've submitted those documents both to the ABCC and to the board. Tomorrow, I'll make sure we have a comprehensive package. And for issues like the address and the floor plan, we'll give you those. And something like the floor plan, it's not, the address, excuse me, it's not a documentable issue. We'll just attest in some way what the right number is, and you can put that on the LLA certification form.
Okay, and do you think the ABCC will need the board to take a vote or anything to resubmit, or?
It is, I've had this issue before. It is not a statutory requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a small thing is missing. We fax it in. Someone puts an X on the reconsideration and faxes it back to the ABCC.
Right.
If it makes you feel more comfortable or you think it's somehow procedurally appropriate, a vote to send this application back to the ABCC for reconsideration could possibly remove all doubt.
Okay, I mean, that was my impression as well, that it wasn't strictly you don't need a yes vote, so to speak, but
right.
But again,
the ABCC is just looking for that piece of paper. They're not going to ask whether you took a vote or not, but if you feel for your internal purposes that you need to, that would be up to you.
Margaret?
If I may, I think it would be, in order for the LLA to send this back to the ABCC, I think it at least needs clarification on the street address. At the very least, why would we send back the application with an incorrect street address, even if it's only a clerical edit that the applicant could make?
No, I wouldn't suggest that you do.
Okay.
I said tomorrow I'll give you another copy of all the LLA, of all the RNA documents, and we'll give you some type of attestation about the address, just so you have it for your record. Then you can just print it on the reconsideration form.
Okay, thank
you. Okay. Then I believe we do have a plan. I want to thank you all for coming. And we look forward to any paperwork that you are going to send to the town offices.
Thank you very much. We'll get right on that. And I believe I have everything or almost everything, and I should be able to get it to you quite quickly.
If you need anything else, please, you know where we are. Okay?
Thank you. Yep. Thank you for your help.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Nice meeting you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Bye, Brian.
All right. Thank you,
Brian.
Bye, Brian. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay.
All right. We'll move back to the rest of our agenda. I believe we're at old business. And we need to talk about rescinding the vote to open the November 3rd, 2020 special town election warrant that was requested by the Berlin-Boylston Regional School District. So
Can I just make that motion? Is there more discussion?
Margaret, is there anything you want to share with us before we take a vote?
Just an update to the board that we are continuing to work with the district's legal counsel, and our town council has weighed in, Boylston's town council has weighed in to try to polish up this this language in the proposed special legislation. And simply put, the district, I believe, has recognized that it is not feasible to have the special election simultaneously with the November 3rd election. And so they are now seeking to have it placed on the town election ballots. So that is a good thing for the town.
And what is the process to fill appointments if some of the people currently serving don't want to stay on until May?
That process, as it stands right now, is outlined in the district agreement. And I'd have to pull that up, Scott.
That's fine. It's not critical for this moment. And so if I'll dig for it, but if you send it over the next week or so, it's fine. It's not time critical.
So, and I had asked Margaret about, I believe there were reasons why the district, they were doing the vote in November rather than at our May local elections. But I was asking Margaret if she could perhaps ask again why we couldn't. I mean, it would be a change to the agreement, though.
It would be a change to the agreement, and I think it would be wise to look at that option in the future. That and other things in the agreement that we might want to change while it's still very new.
Yeah.
And we have a special town meeting coming up in the fall that we could actually vote it on.
It's true. That's true.
All right. So I guess I would need a motion to rescind the vote.
I so move to rescind the vote to open the November 3rd, 2020 special town election warrant as requested by the Berlin-Boylston Regional School District Committee.
That vote was taken. That vote was taken by the board on August 3rd.
That was taken up by the board on August 3rd.
Wow. I don't know, Scott, can you repeat that? I didn't quite get it off.
I'm just reading it off you can't see it. My screen over here, I have it up, and so I could read it off.
Seconded.
Okay, then we'll take a vote. Keith, aye.
Stone, aye.
Hawkins, aye.
All right, I think we're good. And let's see, we were going to have, Margaret would like us to have a discussion on the HR consultant's draft classification and compensation plan.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I would love any comments or questions you have on the preliminary updates that were provided to the board and personnel committee members on August 12th, so I could share them with the consultant and the personnel committee.
Do we have a thought of what the process is to regularly update it? Because of course the first levels of the thing are based on the current, or not the January 1st minimum wage, and that minimum wage is going to go up 2 more times in the next 2 years. And so
we actually are going to be provided the tool that will allow us to update it on our own. So we will be able to build in COLAs, make changes, but we'll be provided with a working tool to allow us to do that.
Because I remember correctly, the analysis was what the fiscal impact was for the current fiscal year, but not a good sense of what the fiscal impact might be in the next couple of years as we continue to raise the minimum wage.
Right. It'll allow us to update that.
Okay, questions? Peg.
Shocking, I know that I asked a question. So I went through, took lots of notes, always told, show your work. So I went through and I looked at all the positions, and Margaret, I don't know if this is a question for the HR consultant, or maybe it's for you and the consultant and personnel, I don't know. But you have more than a handful of people that are well over the 10% mark compared to other towns. And some I'm not shocked at all. Some others I am. So let's pretend that it's time for either contract review or performance review. How do you tell someone, I'm sorry, but you're overpaid and I'm not going to give you a COLA, and I'm certainly not going to give you any type of step increase because, well, you're at 26% overpaid compared to other towns around us.
Mhm.
So how does that discussion go? And the part two to that question is, so there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 9 that I found that were over 10% compared to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 that I found that were under 10%, and some are drastically under 10%. So how do you have that conversation? And I know that there's a plan in there to bump somebody, you know, a quarter, you know, something like that. But this is huge, Margaret, when you start to look at somebody who is overpaid 26% and somebody who is underpaid, who has just as valuable a job and is underpaid by 24%. How do you have that type of conversation?
Okay, so in the past, I mean, I'll speak for myself first, but I want to preface it with, I believe that we need to go to the consultant for recommendations on measures to take in this particular case. In my past, I have actually had this happen, and we essentially ended up having to freeze wages for certain employees, explaining that in order to achieve market equity and internal equity, we needed to create balance with the position. So that's what I've done in the past. In this particular case, because the consultant is actively working on this, we need to ask the consultant for recommendations on different measures. Ultimately, it's going to be a policy decision that the board is going to make in consultation with the personnel committee. So Peg, I'm going to bring this question to the consultant and ask her for various measures the board and the personnel committee can consider. With regard to contract positions, this gets a little trickier because we do know that contracts for, name it, fire chief, police chief, town administrator, any contract positions, the provisions can vary widely from town to town. And I think that it's worth doing a contract analysis in that case, because this isn't your standard, oh, it's an hourly rate of X in this town versus X in this town. There are a lot of things behind it in a contract. I did have a brief discussion with a consultant on contract analyses. I can talk to the consultant again to see if they might be able to squeeze something like that in for us. But I have a feeling we're going to be largely on our own. I've done that before too. I'm happy to work on that. But again, bottom line, I think that we need to go straight to the consultant in this particular case and ask for recommendations.
Yeah, because here's my concern. I mean, if we think back a few weeks ago, we approved a contract, and one of the reasons doing it was, well, you know, we don't want to lose a good person. Okay, fine, that's valid. That's valid. So how do you have that same discussion with somebody else who may not be a contract, under a contract, to say, I'm sorry, Sally, but we're going to freeze you. And she says, well, hey, thanks, gotta go. So
sometimes that happens.
I understand that. I understand that sometimes that happens. But if you're using the argument of a couple weeks ago of, hey, we don't want to potentially lose somebody who's really good, but yet you're willing to potentially put 8, 9 others in that same bucket, how do you justify it? This is what I grappled with all week.
My problem is I'd like to rebut that, except that it goes back to what we talked about at executive session, but those were not the reasons for me supporting that contract.
I understand that.
I do also want to make it clear that not every position under municipal law can be a contracted position. And so fortunately or unfortunately, there are employees who can have contracts executed for them and employees who cannot. So, and I know, Peg, we're not talking apples
I know that.
as far as employees.
And we don't have someone named Sally, so I can continue to use Sally as our example.
Yes, we don't have a Sally.
So if Sally is currently earning, let's say, $27 an hour, and it turns out that on this chart where she would fall naturally is $24 an hour, I still think she might be able to get a step raise, because if the step raise goes from 24 to 25, we don't give her a raise. She's in a negotiation that her salary stays freeze, but that doesn't mean she stays at the same step. She stays at her current salary until such time as the step that she moves into is above her current salary, her current hourly.
Okay.
So she could still move steps. She just wouldn't get any increase.
And also, the amounts over, just to clarify, and I know Peg, you know this, and I just want to note it for the record that those percentages are percents higher or lower than average.
Mhm.
So I just, yeah, okay. So I just wanted to.
And
make sure
that's what I looked at, Margaret, is that, you know, I looked at that, and that's why I just randomly picked over 10%. You know, so ones that were 11, 12, I wasn't looking at that, but I'm looking at ones that are 20.5%, 26.3%, 26%, 24%, significantly over. And then I look at the other way, 41% lower, 23% lower, 26% lower. So that's a huge gap. You know, when you're talking about someone who's here, who should be here, and someone who's here and should be here.
Well, I think it's a good thing we've done this had this HR consultant come in. It's been good information.
I am more than happy to bring back the comments to her that were discussed tonight. I especially recommendations on how to achieve that balance between employees and how they're paid.
One of the things I came away with, and I've said in a couple of HR things at work, and I believe it came from here and not work, was COLAs as dollar amount raises instead of percent raises, because percent raises exacerbate the disparity between lower paid and higher paid. And I might be looking more in the future about saying, instead of potentially percent raises, by saying everybody gets 10 cents an hour or 15% an hour more.
That's something Margaret's talked to us about already.
It certainly is.
So clearly
yes.
It came from this conversation and not from work, and I'm not going crazy.
Well, even if it came from work, it's now on both of them.
So Margaret,
by the way, COLAs can also be approached that way. I just want to note that. It does not have to be a percent COLA. COLAs can be approached with flat dollar amounts as well.
So Margaret, are we good with all the classifications? I mean, where there's some updates that were, I know that there were the job descriptions that were coming. But
there's a lot of them coming.
Yeah, but what about like all the steps? Are we good on those? Because there were still like some blank ones, like step 3 had a step 1 and didn't have anything else after that. So are these as current as possible?
I mean, this was her preliminary draft. So I will talk with her and ask for an updated draft that we can look at again. I don't know that, I don't believe her next product is going to be a final product. So why don't I just ask her about updates that have been made to it?
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions before we move on?
Okay.
Oh, just sort of a work in progress too. I mean, it's not gonna, things aren't gonna change overnight.
And I know that she'll be coming back for another meeting with the board and personnel committee too.
Okay. All right, then we're going to talk about the select board's draft goals and objectives.
Would you like me to just give an update? I've gotten a couple of the individual board members' updates that you'd like me to compile into a total document. Scott, if you could just get me
Right, I was going to say, we're missing mine. Yep.
Comments. Yeah, comments. I will build it, and so for the board's meeting on the 8th, I will have a compiled document. Feel free to give me your own ideas as to where you feel these, what are there, 16? They're 15 or 16 or so. 16 priorities and objectives should fall, okay? And then I'll build that for your meeting on the 8th.
Okay. And we'll move on to new business. And discussing a fall special town meeting.
Okay, so I've mentioned this to the board before and gave kind of a draft outline of potential town meeting articles, many of which were deferred from the annual town meeting. Mary reached out to the town clerk to ask about a possible special town meeting date. I gave 3 options, all between late November and early December. It sounds like Monday, November 30th might be a workable date. It would also give us time to get through the initial part of the capital planning process to make sure the capital planning committee still has the same recommendations on those remaining capital projects that they initially gave recommendations on. And also I've added to your list, and I think I put the list of potential articles, and I put new potential articles in shading.
Okay.
And as of today, there were even 3 more. So, you know, this is clearly a list that's growing. So, possible additional articles could be the school committee election special legislation. Although I am getting differences of opinion between legal counsels on whether that does need town meeting approval or whether it needs select board approval. In both towns. Also, we have some new information coming in on the 1870 town hall with regard to the septic system there. And I'm still in the information gathering process, trying to figure out where we're at with that. But it is possible, after my conversation this morning with the health agent, that there might be some minimal engineering required to determine the system size and assess the design capacity of that system. So that's a possible funding article. And then the last thing on the town hall is that it doesn't appear that a Title V covenant and easement was ever executed for the leach pit that exists on the church property next to the flagpole. That's something that we may have to look at executing, and I have to determine whether or not that needs town meeting approval. So that's just another possible article that I've added as of today.
Can I ask you, Margaret, while we're on the subject?
Sure.
What are the symptoms? What's going on with it?
So what precipitated this, the issue or the conversation about the 1870 town hall septic is COVID actually spurred this. So Lisa, our town hall manager, has been working really hard to try to assure that groups can start coming in again. And she asked the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health about food service in the 1870. And Neshoba answered that the 1870 does not have a food service permit, so they can't serve food. However, that wouldn't preclude a caterer from coming in and being able to reheat food or use the kitchen to serve food and things like that. You just can't cook and prepare food for service there. But when that question was asked, Neshoba responded that they were turning it over to our health agent, Bill Brookings, for feedback on the town hall septic and well, any septic and well issues. And that's where this came up. So this is some of the information on this issue is very, very old, going back. I mean, today I got information going back to 1959. So this is requiring kind of a lot of background investigation. So we're compiling records at this point.
So we don't know if we need to do anything
specific? Not
okay.
Not for sure yet. It does appear that a few things were opened but never really closed out along the way. So I want to see where there are open ends.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it could be a possible article.
We were able to use this building as you're currently doing this.
Well, we think we can.
We've had no change to the use of the building. Or...
Well, no, we don't believe so. But Scott, I'm still trying to gather information on this piece of it. So, yeah. Given that the group sizes are very small indoors right now, there should not be an issue. So we'll just keep looking for
Right,
answers.
but again, even with no COVID, the elevator added no more capacity to the building.
No, I think these are questions. I think these are questions for the Board of Health. We need to determine what the existing usage is and whether the usage is changed.
Is there some usage though at this point? At the 70 town
There's been very, very, very minimal usage. There really aren't groups coming in at the moment. So.
All right, well, you can keep us posted.
I will absolutely keep you posted. Mary's been going through board files. I've now got some Board of Health files, and I've got some calls and contacts to make from people that might have been involved in the various renovations there.
So Margaret, oddball question I'll ask anyways, because, well, that's what I do. I know that we're tentatively looking at a Monday night for a town meeting. Is there any possibility that we do a weekend? Just might be easier for families with school kids, you know, to come. We've had to, at our last one, we got babysitters because there were a couple items that were big for the school. We know that the parents would be there. I just don't know if like a weekend is better.
That'll be a board decision. I only asked about Mondays just to give us some ballpark dates, but that will be a board decision if you'd like to discuss having it on a weekend as opposed to a weekday. I don't know what dates we're talking about here.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't think that you can have it that weekend because I'm pretty sure that that's.
Oh, that's Thanksgiving weekend. It would have to be the following. So say the following weekend, December 5th.
So, yeah, or you go a week up. So either the 21st of November or the 5th of December.
Yeah.
There are issues with Saturdays too. I mean, kids have,
I know. I know. It really is. It's a half a dozen of one, 6 of the other. Right. But I didn't know if it's something that we could talk about and maybe somehow gather some interest, some feedback from folks in the town. If there was a weekend one and it was Saturday, is it better? Is it worse? Dear God, no, just leave it on Monday. We're used to Mondays. And really
start by asking the school what the plans are for Saturday at the Berlin Memorial School or Tohoto if we chose to, the board chose to have it there.
I think
and we wouldn't consider Sunday.
The afternoon.
I mean, Saturday is still a religious day for some people, just like Sunday is.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just trying to think if statute is pretty specific in certain cases about Sundays and legal holidays. So I'd have to look into that. If
Mary's shaking her head, yeah. Yes, we can have them, or yes, we shouldn't. No, we can't have them.
Not on a Sunday, but I'll double check that.
Okay.
Yeah, the statute's pretty specific on Sundays.
So the reason the statute exists for Sunday, I still feel for some people is true for Saturday as well.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of time. I say a lot of time. Time will run out before we know it, but there's time for the board to discuss.
I'm worried with this list that it's not a one-night meeting, and we should start thinking about how we split it over 2 nights and what would go on one night versus the other, or how we have themes to the nights.
Or that we start to look in again for potential babysitting and try and find those.
I'm in favor of spending tax dollars on child care for any town meeting. That if you're that parents have a right to be as involved, and I don't think it's necessarily on us to have parents have to decide which one of them can come to the meeting and which one gets to stay home, because Ross and I, who don't have kids, both get to go. And so I would be in favor of figuring out child care solutions for town meetings.
Well, we've actually had good volunteers that have come through from Tohoto.
Yep. Yeah, we provided snacks, for those kids too.
Yep. All right, so I'm assuming we'll be talking about this on another agenda. Correct?
Sure will, and we'll start putting these articles in more of an article format.
Thanks. I was trying to count them earlier, and it got to.
I
was trying to figure out gray versus not gray, and which ones might be real, which ones are pie and sky, and.
Too many to count, Scott. No. There'd be at least a couple of dozen.
And I have a hard time getting past the first one, which is paying previous year bills, because every year we're promised that will never, ever, ever happen again. And yet here's another one, and it's actually in the same department the last several have been in as well. And so I don't know what we do to clarify so we don't end up with wasting time at a town meeting to pay a bill for $449 that should have been taken care of in a very timely manner.
This is the first, yeah, if I could through the chair, this is the first I've experienced here, and I immediately gave recommendations to that department as far as tracking expenses and kind of creating an encumbrance for an order for a service or item.
Okay.
Oh, Mary's got something to say.
Mary?
They say it's only best practice to avoid a Sunday or a holiday as like a commonsensical thing, but there's actually not a prohibition on it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay then. We'll talk about that in another week or so. And we'll
By the way, my recommendation, excuse me, I'm sorry, Chris.
Go ahead.
My recommendation, if it is on November 30th or thereabouts, to open the warrant on October 26th.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We open them and close them just like that.
And in the fine words of one before he was a board member, Scott Hawkins said that the BOS needs to grow something and start shutting things down when people are late. So now that you're here and you're one of us, I see you smiling. Scott, I'm holding you to it.
But my first time seeing this, I'm like, why is this here? We should not be having more of these. It's just, these meetings go on long and things that just feel like wastes of time, I'd love not to have on the agenda.
All right. Review the draft FY22 budget calendar guide.
Yeah, FinCom had its first review of this at its meeting last week. So far, we're on track. We've got a couple of things in process now. What I've tried to do on this particular calendar guide is bump everything up by a month in some cases, in order to give the Finance Committee plenty of time at the end to get their report ready and vet requests, and give the board time to be able to meet with departments. If the board actually needs to speak with department heads, in some cases, I know you'll probably want to. So I've tried to move everything up to a more comfortable spacing, and you'll be talking about the annual town reports portion of this in just a minute too.
And the annual reports that need to be written by department heads, chairs, and
isn't that a different agenda item?
No, it's on. Isn't that on the calendar guide?
It is January 29th, 2021.
Was that? Didn't it?
That's the
yeah. January 1st.
January 1st is on the policy and procedure doc.
That's right. So we haven't adopted it yet. It could change.
Okay, because well, it just seemed late. That's all.
I think it's been quite a bit later in the past. On the procedure, January 1st would be the date.
Mary's trying to get our attention.
Well, it's been late because it's been, as you all know, repeatedly allowed to be late, but Margaret's not going to allow that.
January 1st, according to the procedure, would be the deadline by which the notice would go out to all departments, boards, and committees and other entities to get their reports in by January 29th.
Okay.
The case. So
never works.
Oh, we've got to try. And now that it is being reeled in with under Mary's purview, we are going to keep this on track.
Okay.
And here's the simple answer. You don't get it in, you're not in the report.
Right.
1, 2.
The things I would suggest on the budget timeline is, although the Berlin-Boylston Regional District does give them 45 days prior to the town meeting to get their budget in, that has the 60% of the budget, the Burleson-Boylston, coming on the last day of the budget.
Yeah.
And so they need to we need to make sure there's both a preliminary budget, like several months before that is probably not going to change much. Because if suddenly they come up with a $600,000 increase on the very last day of the budget, and we decide we can't cut that, we have to re-meet with all the you can tell I've been on FinCom too long. They have to meet with all the department heads all over again, and they have what, a week to do it all in?
Yeah, this is the regional agreement, Scott, and maybe this is another piece that we have a discussion with the regional school about maybe moving that up a little bit to make it a little more feasible.
Or adding language about a draft budget that is hopefully going to be close to the final.
Yeah, and to be fair, they did submit it well ahead of March, that date.
Yep. Because usually it is one of the first groups that you want to try to meet with is the schools, because they sort of set how much you might have available for anything else. And you sort of want to have the budget all in place by like the last part of February. So when you need to start making cuts, you can go to the school saying, look, you asked for 100,000, we think we can only afford 80 or something like that, as you do to the other departments. And they might take their final vote on March 19th, but that should be something that is a result of a lot of negotiations.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I actually, in my budget memo, would like to be able to set reasonable parameters for all departments and boards and committees, reasonable and clear parameters about how much, what the fiscal situation of the town looks like.
And that we, several times in my years, meeting with department heads about their budgets in December doesn't seem to ever really happen. By December, you're only a few months into the current year anyway. And to know what the next year is going to look like is asking much. That really, that you start meeting weekly in sort of early January, and even finding people who are ready to meet in early parts of January are difficult. It's usually after Martin Luther King Day before you really start going every single week to meet with folks. And you can usually get it in and still meet because I tried to get us done by that mid-March time, so we could notify all the departments what our final decisions were. They could freak out and get back to us. We could meet with the 2 or 3 people who think we've made horrible mistakes and make those adjustments and still be able to meet a March 19th or March 24th sort of deadline to get something over to the town report committee.
Okay.
And because the budget's always the same shape, they can start laying out the town report and have it like the budget will go here, already done.
Right. Okay. So if you want to give me your individual comments about any changes or updates that should be here, this is a guide. We stick to it the best we possibly can. Unless there's a pandemic.
What I get out of this conversation is that maybe you need to start a list of things that are concerning for Berlin in the regional agreement. Just to see whether we can work things out.
And some of it makes sense. We made the regional agreement all in theory based on stuff, trying to do the merge as much as anything else with all good intent. And now that we're sort of a year into it, I think we're finding things where that agreement is hamstringing us more than helping us.
Yeah. We found an issue last year with the capital assessments where and the school district has been very good to work with us, working with us on this. Our capital assessments were due in November of the fiscal year, when the actual debt service payment isn't actually due until April of that fiscal year. So it drains our available cash for a payment that's going to be made in the spring. So yes, the school's been very good about working with us on that particular piece, but that's another one. I'm making my list now, Chris, so I don't forget. What was the third one that we talked about first?
Oh, I think we were talking about the election.
The election, of course. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So do you want to talk about the annual town report policy and procedure too?
Yes.
So my concern, but not concern, makes it sound more serious than it is. My issue with the town report when I read it is, what time period are they really covering? And that some of them are like up to the day they have to write the report, and some are the previous calendar year, and some are the previous fiscal year, and some are just random time periods whatsoever. So you can't all line them up. And I would really love to have some sort of policy and procedure, maybe is like a guideline about how long it should be. I think that's just a general guideline, but I think some departments are way too wordy and some are not wordy enough. And again, if they had a guideline, I would never cut a department that if we said it was 250 words and they had 300 or even 350 words because they had the Board of Health this year is going to talk a lot about COVID related stuff. I expect theirs to be longer than normal. But that hopefully that means there's another team that's barely met because of COVID and theirs is going to be shorter. But if we give them, they should be 250 words or give or take, they should cover this time period, make me happy. And get it printed on time.
Points. I mean, typically you should be able to get the report in a page.
Right.
Now, the statute does provide that certain departments, boards and committees, well, statute and our bylaws, that certain departments, boards and committees must file financial information. So certainly the departments could file financial information, but the statute says calendar year or fiscal year. It does not say pick your choice. I think we really do need to set guidelines that this should run on the calendar year. If it's due in January, give us everything till December 31st, right? So I completely agree with that.
When you see the title, it says annual report for 2020. So when you think it's January 1st to the December 31st.
Exactly.
Well, you'd think that, but again, the book gets very confusing because it is the fiscal year 21 and the book that's labeled 20 that has the minutes from 1919 and I mean, it's really, or 2019 or whatever it was last year. And so
clarify that. That should be pretty easy to clarify, don't you think?
Yeah. Because then you could have like in the table of contents, these are the reports for the calendar year of X, and
there you go. Yep. So this is being introduced to the board tonight for your first reading, essentially. I'd welcome any questions and comments you have on the dates, on the language, and you'll see on the back that I have included the relevant statute and bylaws for this. So please get us your comments. Happy to incorporate them.
So question on the town reports, software. What are we going to use to write the town report?
Oh, maybe Mary could speak to this.
She's like, what?
Lori
Mary, get off of my time. What?
Lori Farabee uses Adobe, which takes a little bit higher skill set to use it. And then the Publishing for Dummies is Microsoft Publishing, but apparently it puts out a boring and uniform looking product. But it's
for a lesser cost.
And for a lesser cost, whereas Adobe has a monthly charge
subscription.
And yada, yada. But also I've been reading that people are warned that unless you use Adobe a lot, then you're not really going to get the hang of it. So I don't have a lot of publishing product that I'm doing on a regular basis in my job. So I'm not sure. You know, Lori's expertise is with Adobe. She used to work in the newspaper industry. I wrote for a newspaper, but I didn't do layout. So I don't necessarily know that we want all the features and functionality of really.
We only use Adobe at work.
Mm-hmm.
All of our big
You're in the IT industry, Scott.
I'm not in the IT. I'm in actually mental health industry. I happen to be an IT person, but our development.
The same thing.
Our development department and the stuff we do for events and fundraisers is all done in Adobe. We probably have also 30 or 40 licenses for it now because it's actually used for us creating all the form. You know, when you go to your doctor's office and all the stupid little forms you got to all fill out, we have to create all those stupid forms.
I know a lot about those forms because we don't have anybody in town government who has the Adobe software that they can create those PDF typable forms other than James, who sometimes does it as a gift to the town on his own account, James Wheeler. So whereas I would like to actually know about Adobe personally,
right.
I don't know if there's a good point in me learning how to do it and then it doesn't serve any purpose and then I lose my skills because I'm not doing it but for one time a year.
Mary's apt to use Publisher a lot more. It can do business cards. It can
do brochures.
I'm not arguing
for Publisher. I'm just, I just.
Oh no, I think I am. It's more cost effective and probably a little more versatile for your purposes.
Except for
purposes.
it would be
I
a
was
bummer
surprised
that
it was
it
even
is
still
bland.
exist.
Oh, yeah, I guess it does. Well, I did ask the publisher or the printer in Lowell if they prefer one or the other. They really have something to say about like the files being turned over in one format or the other. I don't know that they'd really care.
Yeah.
But then working with Lori to the degree that she wants to stay involved, she's an Adobe Mac user. And I'm all about Microsoft, for better, for worse.
Yes,
So,
that's the problem. We need to have people that, a couple people that have access to this so that if something happens and let's just say Mary, you know, I'm picking on you, Mary, because I'm looking at you.
no,
you know,
Mary wins the lottery.
You know, that's right. Mary has the only license. Mary wins the lottery and says, see you later, I gotta go. And none of us can get into it. So it needs to be something that can be spread, or if there's like a common computer that we can put it on in the town offices where.
Adobe's actually in the cloud at this point. You can get to it from any computer.
Oh,
okay.
I'm actually all for it. I kind of would like to have that skill set. So, and also I would like it to look cool because I like that.
So you're talking the subscription as opposed to the license? You're talking about the subscription for.
I don't know enough about it. I'm kind of just
All
waiting
right,
to hear back from the printer.
I'm
and
all
also
about
you
it.
wanted me to ask other towns
Yes.
what software they use.
Yep.
And so I will bang out that tonight and ask.
Yeah, we can do a little more evaluation. I mean, I want to consider cost. I don't want to add software subscriptions if we don't have to, and we want to make sure that any subscription we do have or any software that we do get is going to have a little bit of versatility, right? So we could do other things with it potentially. So I think we just need to look at those options. But I think Mary, being kind of the point person on this, Mary, you'll have to say you'll have to determine what makes the most sense moving forward. So after you do all this,
I'll give you information too about it so you can look it over.
And Scott's IT guy, so I'm sure that he could add in some input as well.
All right. So this was our first read on the annual town report policy and procedure.
Correct.
All right. And we'll bring it back, I assume, next week.
That's what I suggest. I suggest that.
Okay. So now we're up to board questions and comments.
I'm questioned out from earlier.
Scott, you too?
Yeah, I've asked them as we went forward.
Yeah. I just had one question, Margaret. Are you the one organizing a scheduled site visit to the Bullard House for us?
Oh, I think Mary was working on that.
Oh, all right.
I think.
I'm pretty flexible. Maybe okay. Scott and Peg, working, their schedules probably are more important to.
If you could do lunch-ish, lunchtime.
What works for you? And then if you two can tell me what windows work best for the two of you.
If you're more than 4 or 5 days out, I can flex anything really on my schedule, just about anything on my schedule.
So does lunch for like next week work?
Yep.
Okay. Any day better than another, guys?
Not Monday because it's a holiday.
All right, there you go.
That's right.
The rest of next week, noonish. Okay. All right, I'll ask them.
When I was at town offices Friday voting, Barry happened to be there and took me down to the storage room down below, so I have a better sense of what is needed to get stuff out of there into other places. And I am personally a little torn between, I like the idea of volunteers doing it because I hate spending money, but it will get done faster and more completely if we got a quote from a moving company about what it costs them to do it right, because that would get it done in a day.
I think they
Was he amenable to that? Because he doesn't usually want people touching this stuff.
I've never said anything to him, so I did not talk to him about that piece. I walked away thinking about how to try to organize volunteers, what's the best way to do it, and like how we could do it in a COVID safe way. And I'm brainstorming all this in a car out loud while Ross is trying to kindly listening to me. And he's like, why don't you just hire a mover? That would just like get it all done. I'm like, oh, it never occurs to me because I don't like spending money, but maybe this is one of those places. So.
I think they had fire and
Highway.
Right,
Help them
fire,
last
highway
time.
volunteers.
Yeah.
And it could be even a combination of some of this stuff too, and that some of the stuff is relatively easy to move safely for both the volunteers and the items that are down there that we'd like to maintain.
Yeah.
And some things are probably more difficult, you know, fireproof safes that weigh a couple 100 pounds, that taking them apart and reassembling them. But, you know, and some things like the bobsleds and the strange fire apparatus that's probably from the turn of the century that's down there that's kind of neat and cool, we might be able to find a way to do in our trucks. But also just trying to find a way that this doesn't drag out for
Ever.
7 years. And then once that room is empty, then we have the big problem of there's probably 30 people who believe that that space is theirs next once that space is empty. And
Is that space going to be empty?
if the Historic Society stuff gets removed, isn't that space empty?
I wasn't sure. You know what? Historical Commission is coming with a plan at your next meeting, so
Good.
we shall hear from them.
Good, because I know nothing about their plans, and so I could be speaking all of really inappropriately and wrong too. So
All
it's
right.
all said out of a way to help them, not a way to overwrite what they would like to do.
Margaret, did you have something you were?
There's the agenda item that came in less than 48 hours from before your meeting, and that is the confirmation of election worker appointments that Eloise submitted.
Mm-hmm.
So the board, she is asking the board to confirm the appointment of 3 election workers who will be available to commence work tomorrow. Julie Willis, Tim Wysocki, Lisa Wysocki. I guess Eloise has them all scheduled tomorrow.
Okay. So you need a motion.
Yes, please.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
And having no need for an executive session this evening, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
All right.